Hi, I'm back. This is Genesis. Second segment. I'm going to try and make each one an hour, but sometimes I get called away from downstairs, so I might not, and sometimes the videos will be shorter, but I'll do my best to try and do another 1 hour segment for you today. Genesis chapter 14. By the way, the only time I'll read what number I'm at on the chapter, because I want people to read along or listen, is at the end or at the beginning of my hour session. I won't read each number as I go along, because I want people to be able to enjoy just the narration of the story. Chapter 14. Now it came about in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Ellasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of Goam, that these made war with Ber, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, the king of Bela, that is to say, Zoar. All these marched as allies to the low plain of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but the 13th year they rebelled, and in the 14th year Chedorlaomer came, and also the kings who were with him, and they inflicted defeats on the Rephaim, in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and Zuzim, in Ham, and the Emim, and Shev, Kiriathaim, and the Horites, and their mountain of Seir, down to El-Paran, which is at the wilderness. Then they turned about and came to En-Mishpat, that is, Kadesh, and defeated the whole field of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites, who were dwelling in the Hazazon Tamar. At this point, the king of Sodom went on the march, and also the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is to say, Zoar, and they drew up in the battle order against them in the low plain of Siddim, against Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Ellasar, 4 kings against the 5. Now the low plain of Siddim was pits upon pits of bitumen, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah took to flight, and went falling into them, and those who remained fled to the mountainous region. Then the victors took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, and all their food, and went on their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, and his goods, and continued on their way. He was then dwelling in Sodom. After that, a man who had escaped came and told Abram the Hebrew. He was then tabernacling among the big trees of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, and brother of Aner, and they were confederates of Abram. Thus Abram got to hear that his brother had been taken captive. With that he mustered his trained men, 318 slaves, born in his household, and went in pursuit up to Dan. And by night he resorted to dividing his forces, he and his slaves, against them. And thus he defeated them, and kept in pursuit of them, up to Hobah, which is north of Damascus. And he proceeded to recover all the goods, and he recovered also Lot his brother, and his goods, and also the women and the people. Then the king of Sodom went out to meet him after he returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, to the low plain of Shaveh, that is, the king's low plain. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, and he was priest of the Most High God. Then he blessed him, and said, Blessed be Abram of the Most High, producer of heaven and earth, and blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your oppressors into your hand, and that Abram gave him a tenth of everything. After that the king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the souls, but take the goods for yourself. At this Abram said to the king of Sodom, I do lift up my hand in an oath to Jehovah, the Most High God, producer of heaven and earth, that from a thread to a sandal lace, no, I shall take nothing from anything that is yours, in order that you may not say, Oh, it was I who made Abram rich. Nothing for me, only what the young men have already eaten, and the share of the men who went with me. Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share. After these things, the word of Jehovah came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield for you. At this Abram said, Sovereign Lord Jehovah, what will you give me, seeing that I am going childless, and the one who will possess my house is a man of Damascus, Eliezer. And Abram added, Look, you have given me no seed, and look, a son of my household is succeeding me as heir. But look, the word of Jehovah to him was in these words, This man will not succeed you as heir, but one who will come out of your own inward parts will succeed you as heir. He now brought him outside and said, Look up, please, to the heavens and count the stars, if you are possibly able to count them. And he went on to say to him, So your seed will become, and he will put faith in Jehovah. And he proceeded to count it to him as righteousness. Then he added to him, I am Jehovah, who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land, to take it in possession. To this he said, Sovereign Lord Jehovah, by what shall I know that I shall take it in possession? In turn he said to him, Take for me a 3-year-old heifer, and a 3-year-old she-goat, and a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. So he took all these to himself, and cut them in two, and put each part of them so as to match the other. But the birds he did not cut in pieces, and the birds of prey began to descend upon the carcasses, but Abram kept driving them away. After a while the sun was about to set, and a deep sleep fell upon Abram. And look, a frightfully great darkness was falling upon him. And he began to say to Abram, You may know for sure that your seed will become an alien resident in a land not theirs, and they will have to serve them, and these will certainly afflict them for 400 years. But the nation that they will serve I am judging, and after that they will go out with many goods. As for you, you will go to your forefathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age. But in the 4th generation that will return here, because the error of the Amorites has not yet come to completion. The sun was now setting, and a dense darkness came, and look, a smoking furnace, and a fiery torch that passed in between these pieces. On that day Jehovah concluded with Abram a covenant, saying, To your seed and I will give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Canaanites, and the Kenizzites, and the Cadmonites, and the Hittites, and the Perizzites, and the Rephaim, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. Now Sarah, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant, and her name was Hagar. And Sarah said to Abram, Please, now Jehovah has shut me off from bearing children. Please have relations with my maidservant. Perhaps I may get children from her. So Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. Then Sarah, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her Egyptian maidservant, at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, and gave her to Abram her husband as his wife. Accordingly, he had relations with Hagar, and she became pregnant. When she became aware that she was pregnant, then her mistress began to be despised in her eyes. At this Sarai said to Abram, the violence done me upon you, I myself gave my maidservant over to your bosom, and she became aware that she was pregnant, and I began to be despised in her eyes. May Jehovah judge between me and you. So Abram said to Sarai, Look, your maidservant is at your disposal. Do to her what is good in your eyes. Then Sarai began to humiliate her, so that she ran away from her. Later Jehovah's angel found her at a fountain of waters in the wilderness, at the fountain on the way to Shur. And he began to say, Hagar, maidservant of Sarai, just where have you come from, and where are you going? To this she said, Why, from Sarai, my mistress. I am running away. And Jehovah's angel went on to say to her, Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand. Then Jehovah's angel said to her, I shall greatly multiply your seed, so that it will not be numbered for multitude. Further Jehovah's angel added to her, Here you are pregnant, and you shall give birth to a son, and must call his name Ishmael. For Jehovah has heard your affliction. As for him, he will become a zebra of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and the hand of everyone will be against him, and before the face of all his brothers he will tabernacle. Then she began to call the name of Jehovah, who was speaking to her. You are a God of sight, for she said, Have I here actually looked upon him who sees me? That is why the well was called Beer Lahai. Here it is between Kadesh and Bered. Later on Hagar bore to Abraham a son, of Abram called the name of his son, whom Hagar bore Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old at Hagar's bearing Ishmael to Abram. When Abram got to be 99 years old, then Jehovah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am God Almighty. Walk before me and prove yourself faultless, and I will give my covenant between me and you, that I may multiply you very, very much. At this Abram fell upon his face, and God continued to speak with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you will certainly become a father of a crowd of nations, and your name will not be called Abram any more, and your name must become Abraham, because the father of a crowd of nations I will make you. And I will make you very, very fruitful, and will make you become nations, and the kings will come on out to you. And I will carry out my covenant between me and you, and your seed after you according to their generations, for a covenant to time indefinite, to prove myself God to you and to your seed after you. And I will give to you and to your seed after you the land of your alien residence, even the entire land of Canaan, for a possession to time indefinite, and I will prove myself God to them. And God said further to Abraham, As for you, you are to keep my covenant, you and your seed after you, according to their generations. This is my covenant, that you men will keep between me and you men, and even your seed after you. Every male of yours must get circumcised, and you must get circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it must serve as a sign of the covenant between me and you. And every male of yours 8 days old must be circumcised according to your generations. Anyone born to the house, and anyone purchased with money from any foreigner who is not from your seed, every man born in your house, and every man purchased with money of yours must, without fail, get circumcised. And my covenant in the flesh of you men must serve as a covenant to time indefinite. And an uncircumcised male who will not get the flesh of his foreskin circumcised, even that soul must be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And God went on to say to Abraham, As for Sarai your wife, you must not call her name Sarai, because Sarah is her name. And I will bless her, and also give you a son from her, and I will bless her, and she shall become nations, kings of peoples will come from her. At this Abram fell upon his face and began to laugh, and to say in his heart, Will a man 100 years old give a child born? And will Sarah, yes, a woman 99 years old give birth? After that, Abraham said to the true God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before you. To this God said, Sarah, your wife is indeed bearing you a son, and you must call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for a covenant to time indefinite to his seed after him. But as regards Ishmael, I have heard you. Look, I will bless him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him very, very much. He will certainly produce 12 chieftains, and I will make him become a great nation. However, my covenant I shall establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you, at this appointed time next year. With that, God finished speaking with him, and went up from Abraham. Abraham then proceeded to take Ishmael, his son, and all the men born in his house, and every one purchased with money of his, every male among the men of the household of Abraham, and he went to circumcising the flesh of their foreskins in this very day, just as God had spoken with him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he had the flesh of his foreskin circumcised, and Ishmael his son was 13 years old when he had the flesh of his foreskin circumcised. In this very day Abraham got circumcised, and also Ishmael his son, and all the men of his household, anyone born in the house, and anyone purchased with money from a foreigner, got circumcised with him. Afterward Jehovah appeared to him among the big trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance of the tent, about the heat of the day. When he raised his eyes, then he looked, and there 3 men were standing some distance from him. When he caught sight of them, he began running to meet them from the entrance of the tent, and proceeded to bow down to the earth. Then he said, Jehovah, if now I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be taken, please, and you must have your feet washed. Then recline under the tree, and let me get a piece of bread and refresh your hearts. Following that, you can pass on, because that is why you have passed this way to your servant. At this they said, All right, you may do just as you have spoken. So Abraham went hurrying to the tent to Sarah, and said, Hurry, get 3 seah measures of fine flour, knead the dough, and make round cakes. Next Abraham ran to the herd, and proceeded to get a tender and good young bull, and to give it to the attendant, and he went hurrying to get it ready. He then took butter and milk, and the young bull that he had got ready, and set it before them. Then he himself kept standing by them under the tree, as they were eating. They now said to him, Where is Sarah your wife? To this he said, Here's in the tent. So he continued, I am surely going to return to you next year at this time. And look, Sarah your wife will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the tent entrance, and it was behind the man. And Abraham and Sarah were too old. Being advanced in years, Sarah had stopped having menstruation. And Sarah began to laugh inside herself, saying, After I am worn out, shall I really have pleasure, my Lord, being old besides? Then Jehovah said to Abraham, Why was it that Sarah laughed, saying, Shall I really and truly give birth, although I have become old? Is anything too extraordinary for Jehovah? At the appointed time I shall return to you next year at this time, and Sarah will have a son. But Sarah began to deny it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. At this he said, No, but you did laugh. Later the men got up from there and looked down toward Sodom, and Abram was walking with them to escort them. And Jehovah said, Am I keeping covered from Abraham what I am doing? Why, Abraham is surely going to become a nation greater and mighty, and all the nations of the earth must bless themselves by means of him. For I have become acquainted with him, in order that he may command his sons and his household after him, so that they shall keep Jehovah's way, to do righteousness and judgment, in order that Jehovah may certainly bring upon Abraham what he has spoken about him. Consequently, Jehovah said, the cry of complaint about Sodom and Gomorrah, yes, it is loud, and their sin, yes, it is very heavy. I am quite determined to go down that I may see whether they act altogether according to the outcry over it that has come to me, and if not, I can get to know it. At this point the men turned from there and got on their way to Sodom. But as for Jehovah, he was still standing before Abram. Then Abram approached and began to say, will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous men in the midst of the city. Will you then sweep them away and not pardon the place for the sake of the 50 righteous who are inside it? It is unthinkable of you that you are acting in this manner to put to death the righteous man with the wicked one, so that it has to occur with the righteous man as it does with the wicked. It is unthinkable of you. Is the judge of all the earth not going to do what is right? Then Jehovah said, if I shall find in Sodom 50 righteous men in the midst of the city, I will pardon the whole place on their account. But Abraham went on to answer and say, please hear, I have taken upon myself to speak to Jehovah, whereas I am dust and ashes. Suppose the 50 righteous should be lacking 5. Will you for the 5 bring the whole city to ruin? To this he said, I shall not bring it to ruin if I find there 45. But yet again he spoke further to him and said, suppose 40 are found there. In turn he said, I shall not do it in account of the 40. But he continued, may Jehovah please not grow hot with anger, but let me go on speaking. Suppose 30 are found there. In turn he said, I shall not do it if I find 30 there. But he continued on, please hear, I have taken upon myself to speak to Jehovah. Suppose 20 are found there. In turn he said, I shall not bring it to ruin on account of 20. Finally he said, may Jehovah please not grow hot with anger, but let me speak just this once. Suppose 10 are found there. In turn he said, I shall not bring it to ruin on account of the 10. Then Jehovah went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Now the 2 angels arrived at Sodom by evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot caught sight of them, when he got up to meet them, and bowed down with his face to the earth, and he proceeded to say, please now, my lords, turn aside, please into the house of your servant, and stay overnight, and have your feet washed. Then you must get up early and travel on your way. To this they said, no, but in the public square is where we shall stay overnight. But he was very insistent with them, so that they turned aside to him and came into his house. Then he made a feast for them, and he baked unfermented cakes, and they went to eating. Before they could lie down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, surrounded the house, from boy to old man, all the people in one mob, and they kept calling out to Lot and saying to him, where are the men who came in to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may have intercourse with them. Finally Lot went out to them to the entrance, but he shut the door behind him. Then he said, please, my brothers, do not act badly. Please, here I have 2 daughters who have never had intercourse with a man. Please let me bring them out to you. Then do to them as is good in your eyes. Only to these men do not do a thing, because that is why they have come under the shadow of my roof. At this they said, stand back there. And they added, this lone man came here to reside as an alien, and yet he would actually play the judge? Now we are going to do worse to you than to them. And they came pressing heavily in on the man and on Lot, and were getting near to break in the door. So the men thrust out their hands and brought Lot into the house, and they shut the door. But they struck with blindness the men who were at the entrance of the house, from the least to the greatest, so that they were wearing themselves out trying to find the entrance. Then the men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and all who are yours in the city, bring out of the place." Reading the Bible. "For we are bringing this place to ruin, because the outcry against them has grown loud before Jehovah, so that Jehovah sent us to bring the city to ruin." Hence Lot went on out and began to speak to his sons-in-law, who were to take his daughters, and he kept on saying, "Get up, get out of this place, because Jehovah is bringing the city to ruin." But in the eyes of his sons-in-law he seemed like a man who was joking. However, when the dawn ascended, then the angels became urgent then with Lot, saying, "Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are found here, for fear you may be swept away in the air of the city." When he kept lingering then in the compassion of Jehovah upon him, the men seized hold of his hand, and the hand of his wife, and the hands of his 2 daughters, and they proceeded to bring him out and to station him outside the city. And it came about that as soon as they had brought them forth to the outskirts, he began to say, "Escape for your soul. Do not look behind you, and do not stand still in all the district. Escape to the mountainous region, for fear you may be swept away." Then Lot said to them, "Not that please Jehovah. Please now your servant has found favor in your eyes, so that you are magnifying your loving kindness, which you have exercised with me, to persevere my soul alive. But I am not able to escape to the mountainous region, for fear calamity may keep close to me, and I certainly die. Please now, this city is nearby to flee there, and is a small thing. May I please escape there? Is it not a small thing? And my soul will live on." So he said to him, "Here I do show you consideration to this extent also, by my not overthrowing the city of which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, because I am not able to do a thing until your arriving there." That is why he called the name of the city Zoar. The sun had gone forth over the land when Lot arrived at Zoar. Then Jehovah made it rain sulfur and fire from Jehovah from the heavens upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah. So he went ahead, overthrowing these cities, even the entire district and all the inhabitants of the cities, and the plants of the ground. And his wife began to look around from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Now Abraham made his way early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Jehovah. Then he looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the district, and saw a sight. Why, here thick smoke ascended from the land like the thick smoke of a kiln. And it came about that when God brought the cities of the district to ruin, God kept Abraham in mind, in that he took steps to send Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when overthrowing the cities among which Lot had been dwelling. Later Lot went on from Zoar and began dwelling in the mountainous region, and his 2 daughters along with him, because he got afraid of dwelling in Zoar. So he began dwelling in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn proceeded to say to the younger woman, "Our father is old, and there is not a man in the land to have relations with us according to the way of the whole earth. Come, let us give our father wine to drink, and let us lie down with him, and preserve offspring from our father." So they kept giving their father wine to drink during that night. Then the firstborn went in and lay down with her father, but he did not know when she lay down and when she got up. And it came about on the next day that the firstborn then said to the younger, "Here I lay down with my father last night. Let us give him wine to drink tonight also. Then you go and lie down with him, and let us preserve offspring from our father." So they repeatedly gave their father wine to drink during that night also. Then the younger got up and lay down with him, but he did not know when she lay down and when she got up. And both the daughters of Lot became pregnant from their father. In time the firstborn became mother to a son, and called his name Moab. He is the father of Moab to this day. As for the younger, she too gave birth to a son, and then called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the sons of Ammon to this day. Now Abraham moved camp from there to the land of the Negeb, and took up dwelling between Kadesh and Shur, and residing as an alien in Gerar. And Abraham repeated concerning Sarai, his wife, "She is my sister." With that Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Afterward God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, "Here you are as good as dead, because of the woman whom you have taken, since she is owned by another owner as his wife." However, Abimelech had not gone near her. Hence he said, "Jehovah, will you kill a nation that is really righteous? Did not he say to me, 'She is my sister'? And did not she too say, 'He is my brother'? In the honesty of my heart and within innocency of my hands I have done this." At that the true God said to him in the dream, "I too have known that in the honesty of your heart you have done this, and I was also holding you back from sinning against me. That is why I did not allow you to touch her. But now return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will make supplication for you, so keep living. But if you are not returning her, know that you will positively die, you and all who are yours." So Abimelech got up early in the morning, and proceeded to call all his servants, and to speak of all these things in their ears. And the men got very much afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham, and said to him, "What have you done to us, and what sin have I committed against you, in that you have brought upon me and my kingdom a great sin? Deeds that should not have been done, you have done in connection with me." And Abimelech went on to say to Abraham, "What did you do in view that you have done this thing?" To this Abraham said, "It was because I said to myself, 'Doubtless there is no fear of God in this place, and they will certainly kill me because of my wife. And besides, she is truly my sister, the daughter of my father, only not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife.' And it came about that when God caused me to wander from the house of my father, then I said to her, 'This is your loving kindness, which you may exercise toward me. At every place where we shall come, say of me, He is my brother.' Following that, Abimelech took sheep and cattle, and menservants and maidservants, and gave them to Abraham, and returned to him Sarah his wife. Further, Abimelech said, 'Here my land is available to you. Dwell where it is good in your eyes.' And to Sarah he said, 'Here I do give 1,000 silver pieces of money to your brother. Here it is for you a covering of the eyes, to all who are with you, and before everybody, and you are cleared of reproach.' And Abraham began to make a supplication to the true God, and God proceeded to heal Abimelech and his wife and his slave girls, and they began bearing children. For Jehovah had tightly shut up every womb of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And Jehovah turned his attention to Sarah just as he had said, and Jehovah now did to Sarah just as he had spoken. And Sarah became pregnant, and then bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the appointed time of which God had spoken to him. Accordingly Abraham called the name of his son, who had been born to him, whom Sarah had borne to him, Isaac. And Abraham proceeded to circumcise Isaac, his son, when 8 days old, just as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when Isaac his son was born to him. Then Sarah said, "God has prepared laughter for me. Everybody hearing of it will laugh at me. And she added, "Who would have uttered to Abraham, 'Sarah will certainly suckle children,' whereas I have given birth to a son in his old age?" Now the child kept growing and came to be weaned, and Abraham then prepared a big feast on the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Sarah kept noticing the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne to Abraham, poking fun. So she began to say to Abraham, "Drive out the slave girl and her son, for the son of this slave girl is not going to be an heir with my son, with Isaac." But the thing proved to be very displeasing to Abraham as regards to his son. Then God said to Abraham, "Do not let anything that Sarah keeps saying to you be displeasing to you about the boy and about your slave girl. Listen to her voice, because it is by means of Isaac that what will be called your seed will be. And as for the son of the slave girl, I shall also constitute him a nation, because he is your offspring." So Abraham got up early in the morning and took bread and a skin water bottle and gave it to Hagar, settling it upon her shoulder and the child, and then dismissed her. And she went her way and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. Finally the water became exhausted in the skin bottle, and she threw the child under one of the bushes. Then she went on and sat down by herself, about the distance of a bow shot away, because she said, "Let me not see it when the child dies." So she sat down at a distance and began to raise her voice and weep. At that God heard the voice of the boy, and God's angel called to Hagar out of the heavens and said to her, "What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, because God has listened to the voice of the boy there where he is. Get up, lift up the boy, and take hold of him with your hand, because I shall constitute him a great nation." Then God opened her eyes so that she caught sight of a well and of water, and to give the boy a drink. And God continued to be with the boy, and he kept growing and dwelling in the wilderness. And he became an archer, and he took up dwelling in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother proceeded to take a wife for him from the land of Egypt. Now it came about at that time that Abimelech, together with Phicol, the chief of his army, said to Abraham, "God is with you in everything you are doing. So now swear to me here by God that you will not prove false to me and to my offspring and to my posterity, that according to the loyal love with which I have dealt with you, you will deal with me and with the land in which you have been residing as an alien." So Abraham said, "I shall swear." When Abraham criticized Abimelech severely as regards the well of water that the servants of Abimelech had seized by violence, then Abimelech said, "I do not know who did this thing, neither did you yourself tell it to me, and I myself also not heard of it except today." With that Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave them to Abimelech, and both of them proceeded to conclude a covenant. When Abraham set 7 female lambs, the flock by themselves, Abimelech went on to say to Abraham, "What is the meaning here of these 7 female lambs that you have set by themselves?" Then he said, "You are to accept the 7 female lambs at my hand, that it may serve as a witness for me that I have dug this well." That is why he called this place Beersheba, because there both of them had taken an oath. So they concluded a covenant at Beersheba, after which Abimelech got up together with Phicol, the chief of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. After that he planted a tamarisk tree at Beersheba and called thereupon the name of Jehovah, the indefinitely lasting God. And Abraham extended his residence as an alien in the land of the Philistines many days. Now after these things it came about that the true God put Abraham to the test. Accordingly he said to him, "Abraham," to which he said, "Here I am." And he went on to say, "Take, please, your son, your only son whom you so love, Isaac, and make a trip to the land of Moriah, and there offer him up as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall designate to you." So Abraham got up early in the morning and saddled his ass and took 2 of his attendants with him and Isaac his son, and he split the wood for the burnt offering. Then he rose and went on the trip to the place that the true God designated to him. It was first on the 3rd day that Abraham raised his eyes and began to see the place from a distance. Abraham now said to his attendants, "You stay here with the ass, but I and the boy want to go on over there and worship and return to you." After that, Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and put it upon Isaac his son, and took in his hands the fire and the slaughtering knife, and both of them went on together. And Isaac began to say to Abraham his father, "My father." In turn he said, "Here I am, my son." So he continued, "Here are the fire and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering? To this Abraham said, "God will provide himself the sheep for the burnt offering, my son." And both of them walked on together. Finally they reached the place that the true God had designated to him. And Abraham built an altar there, and set the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son hand and foot, and put him upon the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham put out his hand and took the slaughtering knife to kill his son. But Jehovah's angel began calling to him out of the heavens and saying, "Abraham, Abraham," to whom he answered, "Here I am." And he went on to say, "Do not put out your hand against the boy, and do not do anything at him at all. For now I do know that you are God-fearing, that you have not withheld your son, your only one, from me." At that Abraham raised his eyes and looked, and there deep in the foreground there was a ram caught by its horns in a thicket. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham began to call the name of that place Jehovah Jireh. Jehovah Jireh. This is why it is customarily said today, "In the mountain of Jehovah it will be provided." And Jehovah's angel proceeded to call to Abraham the second time out of the heavens, and to say, "By myself I do swear," is the utterance of Jehovah, "that by reason of the fact that you have done this thing, and you have not withheld your son, your only son, I shall surely bless you, and I shall surely multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens, and like the grains of sand that are on the seashore, and your seed will take possession of the gate of his enemies, and by means of your seed all nations of the earth will certainly bless themselves due to the fact that you have listened to my voice." After that Abraham returned to his attendants, and they got up and went their way together to Beersheba, and Abraham continued to dwell at Beersheba. Now it came about after these things that the report got through to Abraham, "Here Milcah herself has also borne sons to Nahor your brother, Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chedzed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, the brother of Abram. There was his concubine, whose name was Reumah. In time she herself also gave birth to Teba, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Maacah, and Sarah's life got to be 127 years long. They were the years of Sarah's life. So Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is to say, Hebron, in the land of Canaan, and Abraham came to bewail Sarah and to weep over her. Then Abraham got up from before his dead and proceeded to speak to the sons of Heth, saying, "An alien resident and settler I am among you. Give me the possession of a burial place among you, that I bury my dead out of my sight, At this the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, Hear us, my lord, a chieftain of God you are in the midst of us, in the choicest of our burial places. Bury your dead. None of us will hold back his burial place from you to prevent burying your dead. Thereupon Abraham got up and bowed down to the natives, to the sons of Heth, and spoke with them, saying, If your souls agree to bury my dead out of my sight, listen to me, and urge Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me, then he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is at the extremity of his field, for the full amount of silver. Let him give it to me in the midst of you for the possession of a burial place. As it was, Ephron was sitting among the sons of Heth. So Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, with all those entering the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, listen to me. The field I do give to you, and the cave that is in it to you, I do give it to you. But the eyes of the sons of my people I do give it to you. Before the eyes of the sons of my people I do give it to you. Bury your dead. At that Abraham bowed down before the natives, and spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the natives, saying, Only if you listen to me, I will give you the amount of silver for the field. Take it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Then Ephron answered Abraham, saying to him, My lord, listen to me. A land plot worth 400 silver shekels. What is that between me and you? So bury your dead. Accordingly Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out to Ephron the amount of silver that he had spoken in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 silver shekels, current with the merchants. Thus the field of Ephron, that was, and Machpelah, which is in front of Mamre, the field and the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within all its boundaries, round about, became confirmed to Abraham as his purchased property before the eyes of the sons of Heth, among all those entering the gate of his city. And after that Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, in front of Mamre, that is to say, Hebron, in the land of Canaan. Thus the field and the cave that was in it became confirmed to Abraham for the possession of a burial place at the hands of the sons of Heth. Now Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Jehovah had blessed Abraham in everything. Hence Abraham said to his servant, the oldest one of his household, who was managing all he had, Put your hand, please, under my thigh, as I must have you swear by Jehovah, the God of the heavens and the God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in among whom I am dwelling. But you will go to my country and to my relatives, and you will certainly take a wife for my son, for Isaac. However, the servant said to him, What if the woman does not wish to come with me to this land? Must I be sure to return your son to the land from where you went out? At this Abraham said to me, Be on your guard that you do not return my son there. Jehovah, the God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my relatives, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, To your seed I am going to give this land. He will send his angel ahead of you, and you will certainly take a wife for my son from here. But if the woman should not wish to come with you, you also will have become free from this oath you gave me. Only you must not return my son there. With that the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. So the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master, and proceeded to go with every sort of good thing of his master's in his hand. Then he rose and got on his way to Mesopotamia, the city of Nahor. Eventually he had the camels kneel down outside the city at a well of water about evening time, about the time that the women who draw water were accustomed to go out. And he went on to say, Jehovah, the God of my master Abraham, cause it to happen, please, before me this day, and perform loving kindness with my master Abraham. Here I am stationed at a fountain of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. What must occur is that the young woman to whom I shall say, let your water jar down, please, that I may take a drink. And she will indeed say, take a drink, and I shall also water your camels. This is the one you must assign to your servant, to Isaac. And by this let me know that you have performed loyal love with my master. Well, it came about that before he had finished speaking, why, here coming out with Rebekah, who had been born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, and her water jar was upon her shoulder. Now the young woman was very attractive in appearance, a virgin, and no man had sexual intercourse with her. And she made her way down to the fountain and began to fill her water jar, and then came up. At once the servant ran to meet her and said, give me, please, a little sip of water from your jar. In turn she said, drink, my lord. And with that she quickly lowered her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she was finished giving him a drink, then she said, for your camels too I shall draw water until they are done drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the drinking trough and ran yet again and again to the well to draw water, and kept drawing for all his camels. All the while the man was gazing at her in wonder, keeping silent to know whether Jehovah had made his trip successful or not. Consequently, it came about that when the camels had finished drinking, then the man took a gold nose ring of a half shekel in weight, and 2 bracelets from her hands. 10 shekels of gold was their weight. And he went on to say, whose daughter are you? Tell me, please, is there any room at the house of your father for us to spend the night? At that she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. And she said further to him, there is both straw and much fodder with us, also a place to spend the night. And the man proceeded to bow down and prostrate himself before Jehovah, and say, blessed be Jehovah, the God of my master Abraham, who has not left his loving kindness and his trustworthiness toward my master. I being on the way, Jehovah has led me to the house of the brothers of my master. And the young woman went running and telling the household of her mother about these things. Now Rebekah had a brother, and his name was Laban. So Laban went running to the man who was outside at the fountain. And it came about that on seeing the nose ring and the bracelets on the hands of his sister, and on hearing the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, this is the way the man spoke to me, then he came to the man there, and he was standing by the camel at the fountain. And once he said, come, you blessed one of Jehovah, why do you keep standing out here when I myself have made the house ready and room for the camels? With that the man came on into the house, and he went unharnessing the camels, and giving straw and fodder to the camels, and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then something to eat was set before him, but he said, I shall not eat until I have spoken about my matters. Hence he said, speak. Then he went on to say, I am Abraham's servant, and Jehovah has blessed my master very much, in that he goes on making him greater, and giving him sheep and cattle and silver and gold, and menservants and maidservants, and camels and asses. Further Sarah, the wife of my master, bore a son to my master, after her growing old, and he will give him everything he has. So my master made me swear, saying, you must not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I am dwelling. No, but you will Go to the house of my father and to my family, and you must take a wife from my son." But I said to my master, "What if the woman will not come with me?" Then he said to me, "Jehovah, before whom I have walked, will send his angel with you, and will certainly give success to your way. And you must take a wife for my son, from my family and from the house of my father. At that time you will be cleared of obligation to me by oath when you get to my family, and they will not give her to you. Then you shall become free of obligation to me by oath. When I got to the fountain today, then I said, Jehovah, the God of my master Abraham, if you are really giving success to my way on which I am going, here I am stationed at a fountain of water. What must occur is that the maiden coming out to draw water, to whom I shall actually say, Please me, drink a little water from your jar, and who will indeed say to me, Both you take a drink, and I shall also draw water for your camels. She is the woman whom Jehovah has assigned for the son of my master." Before I was finished speaking in my heart, why, there was Rebekah coming out with her jar upon her shoulder, and she made her way down to the fountain and began to draw water. Then I said to her, "Give me a drink, please." So she quickly lowered her jar from off her and said, "Take a drink, and I shall also water your camels." Then I took a drink, and she also watered the camels. After that I asked her and said, "Whose daughter are you?" To which she said, "The daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nahor." Whom Milcah bore to him. Accordingly I put the nose ring on her nostril, and the bracelets on her hands, and I proceeded to bow down and prostrate myself before Jehovah, and bless Jehovah the God of my master Abraham, who had led me in the true way to take the daughter of the brother of my master for his son. And now if you are actually exercising loving kindness and trustworthiness toward my master, tell me, but if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left." Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, "From Jehovah this thing has issued. We are unable to speak bad or good to you. Here is Rebekah before you. Take her and go. Let her become a wife to the son of your master, just as Jehovah has spoken." And it came about that when Abraham's servant had heard their words, he at once prostrated himself on the earth before Jehovah. And the servant began to bring out articles of silver and articles of gold and garments to give them to Rebekah. And he gave choice things to her brother and to her mother. After that they ate and drank, he and the men who were with him. And they spent the night there and got up in the morning. Then he said, "Send me off to my master." To this her brother and her mother said, "Let the young woman stay with us at least 10 days. Afterwards she can go." But he said to them, "Do not detain me, seeing that Jehovah has given success to my way. Send me off, that I may go to my master." So they said, "Let us call the young woman and inquire at her mouth." Then they called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" In turn she said, "I am willing to go." At that they sent off Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant, and his men, and they began to bless Rebekah, and say to her, "O you, our sister, may you become thousands times 10,000s, and let your seed take possession of the gate of those who hate it." After that Rebekah and her lady attendants rose, and they went riding on the camels and following the man, and the servant took Rebekah and got on his way. Now Isaac had come from the way that goes to Beer-lahai-roi, for he was dwelling in the land of the Negeb. And Isaac was out walking in order to meditate in the field at about the falling of evening, when he raised his eyes and looked. Why, their camels were coming. When Rebekah raised her eyes, she caught sight of Isaac, and she swung herself down from off the camel. Then she said to the servant, "Who is that man there, walking in the field to meet us?" And the servant said, "It is my master." And she proceeded to take a headcloth and to cover herself. And the servant went, relating to Isaac all the things he had done. After that Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother. Thus he took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he fell in love with her, and Isaac found comfort after the loss of his mother. Thank you for listening. Please come back for more. I have ended at Genesis chapter 24, so the next one will be chapter 25.